Hello, here's movie fanatic Nate coming at you to drop a Blu-ray and review the movie and Blu-ray, do one of my famed movie / Blu-ray reviews of the motion picture by the name of Luther the Geek. So I actually I'm going to review the movie, and then the Blu-ray came out, like, it's over a year old now. It came out, I think, January 2016. So I'll do the movie and then I'll review the Blu-ray. So I actually, back when this movie was being made, or, well, I guess more close to when it came out on home video, I was actually like in 80, I think it didn't really start probably till 89. So for a while there, maybe late 88 through maybe late 89, maybe into 90 or whatever, I was actually I wasn't subscribed, but if I was at a place where you could buy magazines as a kid, as a newfound horror fan, I'd actually buy Gore Zone and Fangoria magazines. So I knew about this movie right after it was kind of, basically done and ready for release, probably right around 1989 or 90, when I want to say that this movie did come out on video in 1990, because I think that's when I saw it. It came out, like, the only version that was available until this right here, as far from what I know, which is the Troma Entertainment. I don't think it's got a year on it. Well, I'm not Roman, so I can't do, I don't know what MMV is, but is that 2005? But this DVD from that came out maybe possibly in 2005 from Troma, which is the same VHS transfer, just on DVD. So I don't know where I was going, but I think I was saying that this movie probably came out on VHS in 89 or 1990, because I'm pretty sure me and my dad rented it in 1990. Oh, what I was saying was, I knew about this movie from either Gore Zone or Fangoria. There was an article about this movie, and the shot of him, which is, no, it's not on here. Well, the shot of the boyfriend laying on the ground with just basically his chest all, bit up and stuff by Luther's metal teeth. So I knew about this movie. So a video store, there was all kinds of mom and pop video stores, of course, in 1990 all around. So one of them that was nearby had this particular movie, and I think it was probably the only VHS version that existed, probably ever, which I think was the original, like, Quest. I kind of like the cover of this, which I'm showing right now. This was the VHS that we rented, which was I think the outfit was named Quest Entertainment or whatever, which, as we find out on the supplements of this particular Blu-ray, was a couple of brothers or something that were just, like, I don't know, fraudulent or whatever. Supposedly they're actually in prison now, just for doing all these backwards, just shady business dealings or whatever. So this outfit who put this movie out on VHS turned out to be just, well, as so many distributors are, just crooks and just assholes or whatever. And if they really are, whatever, in jail or whatever, I mean, not that that's good to feed the prison industrial complex, but I mean, it's cool that if they're really, paying the price for being a bunch of assholes, I guess that's cool. So on to the review of Luther Geek. I mean, shit, so I actually saw this pretty soon after probably it came out, back in 1990, I think. At the latest it was 91, but I want to say it was 1990 when we saw this. Me and my dad would rent horror movies and stuff and whatever, and obviously I probably mentioned this and saw a thing about it, as I said, in Fangoria. Long story short, we rented it. I didn't think too much of it at the time, except for, of course, being 13 years old at the time. Well, shit, doesn't matter what the hell age you are. I mean, well, you have to be old enough to, I guess, appreciate the opposite sex or whatever. But, obviously, me and my dad, were both moved by the character of Beth in this movie, as so many heterosexual males and probably a lot of females were moved over the years by her fantastic nude scenes in this particular movie. So I can definitely, say that, having originally watched this movie in 1990, I mean, the biggest thing that kind of stuck in my memory or the two biggest things that stuck in my memory was the lovely Stacy, however you say her last name's, basically mammary glands, or just body in general, I guess. I mean, she's really in nice shape when they made this movie. So that was kind of, and I'm surprised I didn't, record, dub this movie, as we called it back then, or record this movie for that, because I didn't record it, I'm surprised I didn't record it for that, or at least that part, those parts back then. So I guess it didn't make that big of an impression on me until, this came out, maybe possibly in 2005, and I'm like, ooh. And then of course when I saw that this came out, the first two things I thought of were, Stacy's Memories, and I'm like, ooh. And I never owned this movie, so I thought, well, that'd be a good time to own it and whatever. And I actually don't hate this cover. I think this cover is actually in a way better than this one. I mean, this, I'm kind of, I guess we'll get onto that later, but I kind of like this cover and the fact that the thing is like a sideshow, almost a poster for a sideshow attraction or whatever, which is fitting because this movie is about what a geek really is, in whatever is, basically a sideshow attraction character individual who will do what he does in this movie, which is bite the heads off. Well, I don't know, yeah, he does do that in this movie once. Bites the heads off chicken as just a sideshow attraction. So long story short, this movie's about just this little boy. That's another thing that's goofy about this movie. It's like Texas Chainsaw 3D. Like the timetables are completely all like screwed up. Like the beginning of this movie, it takes place like in 1939 or 8 or something like that, and this kid's like 11 at the time. So basically, all these hicks and farmers and shit are like going to this barn where, I don't even know, maybe it's the same barn from the, present day stuff in the movie, I don't know. Same color anyway, probably just the, same barn, which would be kind of, oh gosh, but basically they have this actual geek from like a sideshow attraction in a cage, who bites the heads off of chickens for a swig of whiskey or whatever the hell he says. So we see this younger character played by the actual writer, or not the writer, but the director's son, the guy who directed this movie. This is like his third and final movie, called Carlton J. Albright. So, this kid is trying to get a look at this guy, this geek in the beginning of the movie in 1938 or 9, biting the head off a chicken, and one of these farmers just like, get out of the way, son, pushes him. And the kid goes down and smashes his teeth on like a wagon wheel or something like that, and that kind of basically hits young Luther in the movie. And then all of a sudden, just like cut to, I think it's one of these movies that says like present day, which I hate. It should be like how many years later, because obviously when you're watching this movie in 2017, it's not present day because it's still 1986 and whenever they filmed this movie. So, but you see what I'm saying? Like, let's just say, well, 30, let's just say 36, which it wasn't, but then 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. I mean, it's 50 years later, and the kid was like 11 or 10 years old and 39 or 38, and the guy's like, what, 45 in this movie? And it's just like, the character would be, what I did was 50, it'd be like 65 or something like that. So I don't understand why they, maybe the guy's older in the movie than he looks or whatever, but I don't understand why they had, I'm really doing a bad job at not dropping this movie. I don't know why they had this, have the beginning take place so long ago. But anyway, cut to modern day, and kind of the only like exposition scene in this movie is kind of this just, I don't know if it's supposed to be the town's whatever, people, what are they called? City council member bastards, or, maybe it's the prison council people or whatever, but there's just this kind of boring scene around this table of these 5 people deciding on whether to, this Luther character has been this, upstanding model prisoner for I don't know how many years, if it's 20 years or whatever. Again, it's just like, of course we don't know when he was put into I don't think we know when he's put into the prison or whatever. But I think, I don't know why he was actually put in there, but regardless, so they decide in this kind of boring, whatever, just low budget, I mean, I don't know, the scene is whatever, where they kind of decide to release Luther, and from then on out, this movie has this really cool, which really isn't found in movies very often, and I kind of like when it is, because so many movies fall into the plot where they feel like they have to have a plot. I guess it's just some kind of pressure on I don't know why the majority of movies do this. They feel like they have to have a plot. And what I like about this movie is, like, after the scene where they vote and decide to release Luther, it's just basically from then on out, it's just like a series of, the whole rest of the movie is just like a series of events. It's like not beginning, middle, end. There's no like whatever. It's just like, okay, he's out, and it's just kind of like next we see Luther just steal a jacket from this guy cutting a chicken's head off, like this butcher guy, and then he just ends up at a supermarket. So it's just this, for the rest of the movie, it's just this random stuff of like the day in the life, and it literally is like the day in the life of Luther the Geek, and it kind of would have been a cool title, really. You know, the day in the life of Luther the Geek, maybe would have been a better title. But so I really respect the movie's just kind of simplisticness, in the sense that, and it's funny because when I was watching it after, you know, just having gotten this Blu-ray not long ago, I was watching it and I was going, you know what, and particularly because this movie takes place in a farmhouse, I was like, this feels a lot like, you know, in a weird way, it's almost like a roundabout kind of a different, I don't know, take on, I mean, it's not a remake of Night of the Living Dead, but it feels a lot like Night of the Living Dead, where that movie does the same thing, where it's not really about, you know, any kind of plot, it's just about stuff going on, and you just see the very linear progression of just this happens, this happens, this happens, and it's kind of like, because of what happens, you know, the characters in Night of the Living Dead, of course, you know, barred themselves into the farmhouse to protect themselves from what's outside, but what happens in this movie is, you know, Luther ends up just making some mayhem in this grocery store, and then he bites the neck off of this younger woman playing an older woman, which is kind of funny. But I mean, it's understandable, you know, you don't want to put an older woman through the hassles of just a gory scene and the makeup and shit anyway, so it's kind of understandable. I mean, it's more memorable having it be like a younger woman who made up to be older, because it's just like, you know, WTF, it's just like, you know, it makes it more goofy in a kind of a weird, you know, way, positive way. So then he basically, he's you know, he bites the, it's really cool because this guy, you know, from the get-go, as soon as we see him, has no, you know, qualms about doing anything. He'll just steal a jacket, he'll just eat eggs like in the grocery store, and then he's kicked out, and then he tries to give an egg to this old woman and she drops it, and then he bites her neck off, you know, and she dies, you know, bleeds out, and then he's chased by the police, and he basically gets in, you know, tries to get in all these cars, but they're all locked and this one door isn't, and he hides in this car, and this woman character comes out of the grocery store, goes back to her farm, and then basically this movie, in reality, we find out in the supplemental materials of the recently released, well, it came out like over a year ago, Blu-ray, is that the director's wife, I think, family owned this farmhouse where they shot the movie, so it's kind of very much like Night of the Living Dead. I mean, the house was so in disrepair that it's kind of like, you know, go ahead and just film in it or whatever. They had previously rented it or whatever, but I think, did they say that the previous owner or the previous renters like trashed it or something before they left? That's just so stupid to do that. If you're a renter and, I don't know, don't do that. It's just, I don't know, whatever. I guess I don't know the circumstances, but anyway, I'm getting off on a side note. So long story short, I mean, it's really kind of an interesting, it's really, because of the fact that this movie doesn't take the conventional beginning, middle, and end kind of a plot and a problem to solve and overcoming it kind of bullshit that the majority, I'd say 99% of movies do, and it's just this random kind of linear just progression of what's going on. It's very unpredictable, and since the movie unfortunately is so forgettable, every time I see it, it's kind of like seeing it for the first time, because it's because it's so forgettable, except for Stacy's breasts and the rest of her body too. Just Stacy in general, I'll say. My dad had a nickname for her back in 1990, Big Boobed Beth, because her character is Beth in this movie. So that's my dad's contribution to, I mean, like I say, any heterosexual male or female who appreciates females' bodies, I mean, that's the biggest thing you remember about this movie. When you hear the title, you just think of Big Boob Beth, you know. And it's hard for me to not just do a whole review on her body, but I'm not going to, well, I'll try not to do that. So long story short, this woman comes home, and since she's on a farm and got a barn with some chickens in it, I mean, she brings the groceries in and comes back out to the car to see the back door open and hear stuff in the, I'm not going to do a beat by beat from after this point on, but long story short, obviously Luther's, I think, in the barn. I already forgot about what happens in this movie, but Luther's in the barn. I think he does bite a head off a chicken. I think it's the only time we see him do it, with this really kind of gory, this movie's pretty, you know, I mean, when gore happens, it's like, whoa, mama. It's kind of like, you know, a lot of neck biting. Basically, that's how he kills, I think, everyone in this movie is biting their neck off, or biting a big hole in their neck and just having the blood squirt out or whatever. So, long story short, this Luther ends up, you know, coming across this woman and ties her up into the barn, or brings her into the bedroom and ties her to the bed. And so holding her captive or whatever. And it's funny because, oh, okay, then basically Stacy, which is the younger girl in this movie with the amazing body, and the guy who plays her boyfriend show up on a motorbike. So it's kind of creepy how, like, you know, mom is like gagged and bound on her bed, and it's just like daughter comes home with her boyfriend and really not knowing what's going on, and you know, the mom's just bondaged up in her bedroom with the door locked or shut and locked, I think, and obviously Beth, I was gonna say big boobed, we'll just say Beth or BBB, and her boyfriend come into the house, and just into some just nonsensical scene, just for purpose to have a shower scene. He just sprays like whipped cream on her, and she's like, "Oh, now I gotta take a shower, darn." And Stacy or BBB. I sound like that guy from the TV show of Buck Rogers or whatever. We'll just say Beth. Darn, she has to go upstairs and take a shower while her mom is, unbeknownst to her, tied down to the bed and gagged and stuff like that. So Beth goes in and, darn it, takes a shower, and boyfriend comes in and unfortunately takes off his clothes, and we see his butt, and it's just like, so whatever. But there's the shower scene where we just see, you know, kind of them scrubbing up and whatever, playing with each other, not in necessarily a sexual way, almost just a scene where we get to see Beth's body. Well, it's not, it's what's her name? Stacy's body. So that's a fun scene or whatever. And then, to be honest, I mean, I just watched this movie like less than a week ago, and as I've said before, it's kind of forgettable. I think basically what happens is then, you know, they find out, or Beth finds out that her mom's tied to the bed, and long story short, the way Beth dies is really kind of stupid. It's just like shaken babe syndrome, like, you know how shaken baby syndrome, this is like, she dies from like shaken babe syndrome. It's like, he doesn't bite Beth's neck off, but it's like, I don't know, he just puts her down on this cutting board and just like, and she's just dead later on. I don't know if she didn't want to do the gore on her neck, probably, but I think she's the only person who dies at the hands of Luther without being bit, you know. She's just kind of dies and stupid, and her mom comes down, and you know, Beth freed one of her hands, and by the time mom actually comes downstairs, I think Beth and boyfriend are dead. And as I said before, I mean, the shot of Beth's boyfriend laying on the ground with his whole chest bit up and his heart actually out of his body, kind of like, I think we see the last few kind of pumps of his heart, which is kind of just like, oh my god, that's gross. And Stacy's character Beth was like, we think she's dead, and she comes alive only to like puke up some blood on her mom's back, and then she dies. It's just like, why did she die? It's kind of nonsensical. The movie's very realistic except for like that point, like why did Beth die? But so then with the movie, basically, I would regard like the last third of this movie, when the cop shows up, is just kind of like more or less boring, unfortunately. It's one of my pet peeves about movies, horror movies in general, is like just like this kind of with a flashlight looking around, because it's not really good for rewatchability. Just, you know, maybe it's suspenseful the first time you see it, but you gotta, I don't know, in my personal opinion, make a movie, you gotta factor in like rewatchability as a factor too. Like, I don't know, that's just my personal opinion. So if you do a lot of shit where it's just like, I just think it's lazy at the end of the day to just, you know, film so much of a movie just with this kind of boring looking around in dark, you know, areas. So last, I don't know, third or fourth of this movie is basically this young cop looking for Luther in the barn, and they have a face off, and Luther bites his finger off, and then obviously he rips his neck out, and he bleeds out, the cop bleeds out. So unfortunately, like the last third of I guess we'll just see like the last third of this movie is relatively boring. It's kind of like backwards, where it should like progress and get more interesting. It kind of just, I don't know, in my opinion, loses steam and just kind of like whatever. So at the end, but the end of this movie kind of makes up for it, whether it's the next morning, and mom is actually, well, the night before she went out there with rifle to shoot Luther, but ends up getting knocked out in the barn. And so she wakes up in the morning and Luther's out there like trying to get a chicken, presumably to bite its head off and drink its blood or whatever. And Luther sees her sitting there in the barn and just she just woke up for having her head knocked out. And what's cool about the character Luther is he doesn't say any like English words. He's just like bark, 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 bark. The guy who plays him fantastically does it fantastically. Oh, I should have also mentioned that at the very beginning, after we see present day, Luther is kind of introduced by like filing these nasty ass. Can't really see him, but filing these nasty ass metal teeth that he's got because his teeth got knocked out. That's the DVD that came out from Troma. So he's got these basically a full set of, from what I can tell, a full set of top and bottom metal teeth, which is what enables him to bite, basically heads off chickens and throats out of people and shit. So the guy who plays Luther does so in a, you think he does it in a very convincing way where you actually think this guy is this frickin' character. So hats off to the guy who played Luther. I don't think he did any other movies after this, which whatever. It's kind of cool when someone just does a few movies and then that's it, whether they're making them or being in them, because it's just kind of like, I don't know, after a while it's just like if someone does too much, it's just like, I don't know, it's kind of, yeah, I just kind of like the fact when that happens, when someone just does a couple movies or just, whatever. So long story short, at the end of the movies, all he goes, bah, 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 he's basically going to go kill this woman, the mother of Beth. And he's like coming closer, like victim, and then to Luther's surprise, she goes and starts talking chicken speak and shit, which actually makes him like, oh, and he becomes like this male, like oh yeah, I found my mate or whatever, as the director will say in the commentary and supplemental materials. So she basically, we think at this point, did she go nuts? Is she really gonna go off to chicken heaven with or the sunset with Luther balking? But no, a couple moments later, luckily, we see her blast a hole right through his fucking, chest or heart or whatever, killing Luther almost instantly, and we see her just, I think she basically just, the movie ends where she's just weeping or whatever. So, the end of the movie is kind of cool with that twist of like, her speaking chicken to kind of get Luther off guard and, kill him that way or whatever. So, long story short, I was tottering. I think at the end of the day, I was gonna go like 1 3/4 stars, but I think at the end of the day, the rating was difficult. But at the end of the day, we're just gonna go 2 stars out of 4, which for me is a lot for Luther the Geek. It's the reason why it's like right in the middle is because I really like the overall structure of the movie in the sense that it's just like I say, it's a complete linear, just progression of just events. And for my money, not enough movies do this, where it's just A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like all the way to Z, just like linear. Just it's not this thing trying to be all fancy and do all this, So I really like when movies just do that and don't spend all this time, when movies take place over weeks and months and all this shit, and it just like happens in this like basically 24-hour period or whatever, So that aspect's really cool, and just kind of that's what I think is the most cool about this movie. The gore in this movie is very good when it happens, and obviously, what's her name, Stacy? Holy cow, she's great, and particularly in the new Blu-ray, presentation, she's great. So 2 stars out of 4 stars for Luther the Geek. It's I was going to go lower because of just like the last third of the movie being so whatever, but I think just because it's so kind of unique in a way, and having seen the HD presentation, it was shot relatively well and stuff, we'll just go with 2 stars as we've already done. So on to the review of the Blu-ray, which just came out I think in January of 2016 by Vinegar Syndrome. Unfortunately, I gotta say I'm not too keen on the cover, as if I don't forget, towards the end of the video I'll show that this does have an alternate cover option, and I was kind of hoping it would be the Quest VHS version, but of course since he's so pissed off at those people, that kind of explains why the cover isn't that. But as always, I'll put a shot of the back of the box so you can see the special features, or in this case what they're called the extras. So it's very exciting when this happens. We got a scanned and restored in 2K from the 35 OCN, which stands for original camera negative. Obviously, if you can get your hands on the camera negative, that's the best way. That's what you want to do for the optimum picture. Audio commentary with the director. He didn't do that on this, I don't think. So that's new to the. I'm pretty sure that's new to the Blu-ray. There's this cool thing on the menu where it's like got new extras and then old extras, and all the old extras were from this DVD. So it's the menu works really cool. We can see what's new and what's old. So from what I can tell, the commentary with director and a moderator guy from Vinegar Syndrome is a new feature of this particular Blu-ray release. And I listened to it, and it's, you know, not the most amazing commentary in the entire world. I think there's one point in the movie where the commentary gets out of sync, and I hate that. He's like saying, oh, that right there is where, and it's not even anything like what's on the screen. So I think the commentary, at least for one point, maybe even more, gets out of sync in this particular instance. It's just like, oh god. So it's got a new video interview with the guy who played the cop in this movie. You know, you can take it or leave it or whatever. Then there's a new video introduction with the director, who's just basically says, he has trouble pronouncing the title of the movie, and I basically says, I'm glad those guys are rotting in jail. Here's the movie. And it's just kind of like, I don't know if I would have done that intro, but he did. And then it says all previous Troma extras included, which on the actual menu on the disc, on the Blu-ray, it's you're going to want to select old extras for those things. Extras and reversible cover art and original theatrical trailer and subtitles. And I might as well just, well, no, you know what I do is I'll just show the menu from the actual, just take a picture of the TV and show you what's under basically the new extras category, and then I'll show you what goes under the old extras category, which are the extras from this release. And one of the most notable old extras from the Troma DVD release is there's like some raw footage, some extra raw footage of the shower scene, and I think the director does some commentary. No, maybe, he does an interview before the footage, and then we just see like the raw kind of daily material of the shower scene. So we actually get to see more in that particular extra, more on standard definition, unfortunately, more of big boobed Beth, just in basically raw daily footage, which is really cool. So that's one of the standout extras, or under the old extras category. So before I end this review, obviously I'll say that it's Vinegar Syndrome, so like they just did recently with the Unbelievable, which I've already reviewed, and the actual writer-director of Slaughterhouse actually saw my review, which I mentioned, which is really cool. Just like that more recently released Blu-ray of that movie, this is just the 2K transfer of this movie is absolutely phenomenal. And like, it's just like, unlike Slaughterhouse though, this, very much like with Drive-In Massacre, the only version of Luther the Geek that was available was like the original 1990 or late 80s, early 90s just transfer that existed. And so this is the first time we've ever seen Luther the Geek in anything but the original, like late 80s, early 90s VHS standard definition, like full frame transfer. And I gotta tell you, oh my gosh, I mean, it really makes this movie actually just better, because you know when a movie, you know, VHS or just a crappy home video version of a movie just looks so crappy, it just makes a low budget movie look even worse. Like when a low budget movie looks this good, it's just like wow, you know, it makes it look a lot less low budget to see that it was actually shot on 35, and it just looks great. It looks like, you know, any A movie. So I can't really stress enough how amazing the movie looks once again from Vinegar Syndrome. Unfortunately, Troma I don't know why, if they own part of the rights still or whatever, but unfortunately when you press play, like the Troma logo, you know, that stupid so, you know, the stupid Troma logo comes up first, which I found to be kind of unfortunate or whatever. It's just like, it's not a Troma movie, but I mean, obviously when they released this, it was Troma, whatever. So that's, I don't know what you know, obviously there's some probably legal reason for that bullshit, but I didn't appreciate that. But once that's over, the movie looks absolutely fantastic, and if I may say so, maybe very much like with Slaughterhouse, maybe it looks, in some of the gore scenes, maybe it's a little too clear, but absolutely, obviously, hands down, the best way to experience this movie on home video. Absolutely fantastic. And I should be noted that this is a Blu-ray, I think, yeah, DVD combo. So for you people without Blu-ray players yet, or like me who've got portable DVD players, it does feature a DVD as well. So, and in closing, I guess I'll show you the alternate cover art. This is the cover art that it comes facing out, this particular cover art, or they give you the option of this cover art coming up. Bam! This is probably, I imagine, like cover art from I don't know, maybe a one sheet or something that they had made or something. I had never seen this cover art before. As I've shown you already, the VHS, that's kind of what I think is the best cover art from the original VHS release, but obviously since he's pissed off at those guys, they probably wouldn't want to use that. But that's actually Beth right there being made sweet love to, and that's her mom being all distraught. But this cover art is, I don't know, I don't love it. Here's the back. Just gory ass, like, ugh. Does he slit someone's throat in this movie? See, I can't remember this movie for the life of me. No, oh no. He just holds her boyfriend ransom. That's right. So here, yeah, this movie is like very hard to remember. So here's the back. So I don't know. I mean, that rifle there is kind of like a cool hick detail in this. So I mean, I'm not too keen. As I said, I think the best artwork out of the three is the Troma DVD, which has the sideshow poster look to it. So, you know, that's one of the only times Troma actually has better artwork than anyone else. But so that's my review of this movie and in this particular Blu-ray release. Definitely, if you're a fan of this movie, you should definitely experience it in this way. It's the best way to experience it on home video. Yeah, like Troma's name is like stamped back here, and it's just like they must be part owner or something, or I don't know. It's kind of unfortunate, but it's not a big deal once you just get past the little Troma logo. So there you go. That's my review of Luther the Geek and the fantastic treatment that it recently got, like over a year ago, a year and a half ago, on Blu-ray by Vinegar Syndrome. It's fantastic. I mean, this was only like, I don't know, $15, so I'm just like, eh. And I put in the DVD and I looked at the shower scene and I'm like, I want to see her in HD. And that was kind of, I don't know, the main reason why I got it. So thank you very much for watching this review, and as always, we'll catch you next time.